Thank you everyone for joining this session. Today, this is a series of sessions that we are actually having on document understanding framework. And today we are actually going to talk about the deep dive on the activities that are used in the framework itself. Agenda that we have would be, I'll just be introducing our speakers, why we should be considering document understanding, the approach of our speakers, Process X, to document understanding, how they're actually handling the solution, creating the solution for their customers, and why is this the approach that is being taken, what's the solution design, as well as like what we mentioned, the document understanding framework activities, and Q&A. So we put Q&A at the bottom, but please feel free to raise your questions. We would want to make it as interactive as possible. So please raise your queries and then we'll try to answer it either via the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, you can do so. Just a quick intro about our speakers. So we have the team members from Process X. We both have two Mortusas today. We have Mortusa Kapadia, who is the director at Process X, as well as Mortusa Masalawala, who is the senior automation leader. And I think that should be all for me. I'll just be here. I'll ask Mortusa Masalawala to share his Mortusa to share his screen and actually talk more about the topic.
Yep. So I'll share my screen, Sean, and Mortusa Kapadia will.
Awesome.
We'll take it over. Yep.
Yeah.
So can you confirm, Sean, that you're able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able to see your screen. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mursa. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this session. Again, what I will do is I'll probably give a bit of an overarching overview of who Process X is, and our detailed approach on undertaking document understanding projects. What are some of the things that we actually consider before deep diving into the technical side of things? So Process X, we are a boutique consultancy focusing on process improvement and process automation. Between us, we have got decades of experience in process improvement, and we are working across multitude of sectors, from aged care to universities to bank to facilities management. So we've got a cross-industry understanding. So we are able to approach the processes that we automate with bringing experience from other industries as well. And in terms of the particular things for document understanding, we've been able to work with some of our clients to automate some very high volume document understanding processes where there are tens of thousands of documents that actually need to be processed every month. So, few like 700-800 documents that need to be processed every day. And what are some of the real world challenges that actually come across when you are actually working on those? And we'll try and cover that in the session to some extent today as well. So when we talk about document understanding, let's start about talking what are some of the reasons why would you actually consider document understanding to begin with. So document understanding, again, when we actually talk about some of the high volume processes that you might have is, and is it all right? Go on the next slide, please. Thank you. You have got some of the very, very common use cases that I'm sure that most of you guys have actually come across is invoice automation or invoice automation. Let us say, for example, that you've got tons of invoices that actually come in that need to be digitized and understood, varying formats. And that automatically means if a human is doing it, it actually is taking a significant amount of time. So, you have got your cost savings as a prime example of what everybody actually approaches document understanding for. But I think that probably if we sell document understanding as only a time saving or a cost saving exercise, we are quite substantially short selling the platform and the capability that actually it brings in. And that is where, like you've got your accuracy factor that is actually so important to include, where it improves the accuracy. It actually helps standardizing the way the information is captured in the document and how it is accurately put in a standard format in your target system. So that actually is quite an important benefit. Then it actually is speed to delivery. Then going, okay, yep, how quickly are we able to get things from some receiving an email or receiving some form of unstructured or semi-structured document, extracting that information and putting it into the target system so that it can be processed or it can be automated. Yeah, RPA can actually be performed on that, and then a better customer experience is delivered. Some industries, it is actually very important to think about from a compliance perspective. When you actually receive certain documents, they actually do need to be stored in a particular format, particular clients, where they actually belong, like error reduction. So now we work a lot in aged care, healthcare sector, and over there's a lot of sensitive information that actually comes across, which is relating to either your residents or your patients, and you have to ensure that that patient information that is actually received for one patient can't actually be stored in another patient's record, which is quite easily done if it is actually human doing it. And there are compliance requirements for that as well to ensure that that is actually met. So that is where when you have got document understanding and you've got sufficient checks and balances built into it, it actually ensures that it actually has gone into the right place at the right time. And lastly, when you add all the top four points, it actually gives the companies a very, very good competitive advantage of how they can actually use document understanding to gain advantage over their competitors. Because if the competitors are actually still doing it the old way in terms of the humans doing the work, they probably are spending a lot more money. They probably are not actually doing it accurately. They probably are not actually delivering the best customer experience they can actually deliver to begin with. And they might actually have a huge audit or a compliance risk that they've actually not really been able to get around at all. And the only way that they probably might be able to get around that compliance risk is actually investing more in humans if they're actually not using any kind of document understanding platform. All right. So if you go on to the next slide, I'll just give a quick brief on what are some of the other. So again, I talked about finance processes, primarily accounts payable and accounts receivable, and that is one of the areas, and examples that we probably might use for our flowing down into our session today, so that we can actually have some common thread that we actually talk about how we have actually used some of the document understanding features, how we have actually put some more business logic on top of the document understanding framework to actually make it even more powerful. But it is not necessarily limited only to the financial services or only to these two processes at all. You have got HR, where you have got staff onboarding. Imagine the amount of documents that are actually received. You've got driver's license, you have Medicare card, you have got passports that are actually coming through, you've got Vivo checks that are actually coming through, where you actually onboarding an employee. All of these things are actually semi or unstructured documents that actually need to be made sense of and be able to be transferred into the target system, which might be your HR system. The next one you have got is public sector. Again, some of the same things could actually be used. Identity documents in immigration applications. You've got universities where you actually have got transcripts that are actually needed to be digitized and actually scoring calculated based on business rules, so that they can turn around those applications faster to students. So the plethora of where you can actually apply document understanding is technically only limited by your imagination. So if we go to the next slide, I'll probably quickly cover on how we approach document understanding. Document understanding is a framework in its own right, and it sits a little bit on top of your RPA journey that your clients might already be on, or you might already be on. And in order to jump on to the document understanding journey, there's a few key considerations that you need to actually think about before you actually make a business case, or before that business case is actually shared with the business to actually get started on it. So the first thing is around about understanding, is the business ready for something like document understanding? Because there's going to be, in your normal RPA, there might not actually be as much amount of involvement with the business, whereas the DU will require some involvement with the business. When you actually have got various forms of documents that are actually coming through, you will need business to help you understand how those documents are actually labeled. What are the important pieces of information that actually you need to extract? Some parts of that information might not actually be relevant when a human is doing it, because the human brain is actually quite smart and intelligent, that it actually doesn't find one piece of information. It automatically looks at another piece of information and subconsciously makes those decisions. Whereas when you are actually doing DU, you actually need to understand some of those anomalies or some of those things as well. And a DU can actually be supercharged by adding more checks and balances, which a human might not necessarily actually be thinking of. So for example, let's take an example. If an invoice has actually been coming in, and whether you want to understand whether that invoice is a valid purchase order related invoice or not, and there is a purchase order number there, the DU can be supercharged by looking at that purchase order number, going back to the ERP or the PO system, validating it, and then understanding whether this invoice is a valid PO invoice or not. Now, some of like that part is not technically possible when a human is actually looking at the onset of an invoice. Yeah, they probably might just look at the number and go, "Yep, this looks like a valid number," and start processing it, only to identify later down in the process of that this is actually not a valid PO number, need to send it back to the supplier, get a new invoice, so on and so forth. That all of those things could be tackled by DU. So there's opportunities how you can actually improve your business process using DU, and how you can actually supercharge it a little bit more. So again, so it is about the business readiness. Does the business have the capacity to invest time in helping you shape the DU solution? Then it is around about the alignment vision. Is the vision from the CIO or from the CFO or the GMs on around about going, okay, yep, this is the direction that we are actually heading. Is that the direction as a business we actually want to move to as well or not? Then comes in going, okay, yep, which is that business area, that where we actually want to start DU with. Again, the idea is to start small and then grow, because there will be a lot of unexpected scenarios that you will encounter. So, like we always try and say that, yep, we will find out every single scenario. But in our experience, that has been a pretty big challenge, because how the unstructured document comes in, how a human being interprets it, how the ERP interprets the same piece of information. There's so many variables involved in it that it is almost extremely difficult to be able to incorporate all of those scenarios in the first go and then implement it. If you try to do that, you might actually be waiting for a very long time before you actually come up with that perfect solution and implement it. And by that time, the requirements have changed, the systems have changed, and all of those things. So it's around about how do you actually identify that one area who is happy to pilot with you with some small stuff and then grow that. Again, there is one challenge over there as well, is that if your focus is too narrow, your solution might be too rigid as well at the same time, and you might not actually be able to scale. So it is effectively kind of a mix of an art and a science of how you actually work your way through during that. And once you have identified a business area, then it then goes in going, okay, yep, which process are we actually going to pick within that area? So over here, we've given an example with one of the clients that we had, is that we did all the things that I mentioned above. We identified their finance area, finance operations, where they said, yep, this is an area where we actually want to focus on. And we had two processes. One was a bank statement reconciliation, and the other one was invoice automation. So the bank statement reconciliation was a low volume process, low risk, not a lot of variation in the formats that actually come in of the statement, reconciliation statements from the customers. And business impact was actually probably low medium. So there was not a lot of effort savings to be had in this particular process. Whereas the other one that we had was the invoice automation, where there was high variability in the formats that would actually be received, high variation in the process, but significant business or high business impact as well, and high opportunity for cost savings. To give you an example, is in the bank statement reconciliation, we would probably be saving them 2 to 3 hours a day. In invoice automation, it was 2 to 3 FTE savings. So as you can see, one was actually a much more meatier opportunity, whereas the other one was probably not as meaty opportunity. However, together with the CFO, the CIO, and our team, we made a decision that we are actually going to go with the bank statement reconciliation process. With all of those factors in mind, is going, yep, at this stage where this particular client was, they were far more comfortable to start with something small, knowing that the effort would be high in implementing it, because there's some DU effort that actually goes in, doesn't matter what you actually do in terms of the setup. And the return would probably not be as substantial. It was effectively a stepping stone going, okay, yep, we will actually use this. We will get accustomed ourselves on how DU works, get our team on board, their own internal RPA team on board onto how DU works. What are some of the quirks that actually come with DU? Get the business slowly starting to understand how DU works. What are some of the things that come in, like, document validation station, document classification station? What are some of those things that actually come in as well as new responsibilities? So we take some things away, but we probably might introduce some new things to them as well. So how does the business actually react to that? So all of those things were taken into consideration before we made a decision on what process to actually take. So I'll probably just pause over here and quickly ask, are there any questions that are there in the chat that probably we might want to take before I actually go on to the next one?
Currently, nothing yet. What to say?
Okay, yep, I'm sure. Thank you very much. All right, so if you go to the next slide, I'll probably just talk through overarching design of one of the solutions that we actually have implemented, and we might actually pick this as a high-level solution design to start talking about the deep dive of the actual document understanding framework and what we have actually done about it. So again, it's a very simple design. At the highest level is we have got our DU, where you've got your documents, and in this case it could be statements or invoices that are actually coming in, being digitized. Again, DU has its own validation rules. So if one of those validation rules has actually not been met, so you can set your own validation logic. So if it actually fails, we actually send it off to document validation station or document classification station, where a user is then notified, and they effectively resolve that notification. Again, those notifications can be customized. So, if it is actually an invoice that is actually being validated, you can say why this has actually come through to the user, as in the sense the confidence for the total amount was not good, or total amount or the item amount, the confidence for that was not good, and that is why it has actually come in. Again, these confidence scores are totally configurable, so you can start with probably high when you are actually starting off, and as businesses actually starting to get used to it, that can actually then be lowered. Again, it is all about risk appetite and understanding what can go wrong if one of those confidence scores that you have, the threshold that you have set is a bit too low and something escapes. Are you actually going to have enough exception handling built in further down where it can actually be picked up further or not? So, and then we've got a business business rules layer. So we then actually validate the digitized information a little bit more, and again identify some exceptions. And once those exceptions are actually identified, we notify users with those exceptions. And we also have developed a UiPath app in this particular instance. So those exceptions are then actually sent over to UiPath app, where a user has the ability to actually resolve those exceptions, feed it back, and then we have got our RPA process that takes over, and then we have got a reporting logic that actually comes in and then advises users of the reporting that actually comes out of it. So that is sort of an overarching solution design. It's a very it's a high-level solution design. Obviously, there's a lot more that actually goes into when you are actually implementing DU or probably build a full-blown RPA process that actually links to DU. It is effectively a far more comprehensive solution, but I think we'll stick to this high level for this particular session. Right. And what well, I'll probably just pause to see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I probably might hand it over to Murtaza, who will then, and not me in third person, Murtaza Masalawala, who will actually start deep dive into the actual framework.
I think there are no more questions in the chat. So I will start getting into the framework activities. Hello, everyone. And thank you, Murtaza, and thank you, Sean. My name is Murtaza Masalawala. I'm the automation leader at ProcessX. And today we'll continue to learn about the UiPath DU product. ProcessX, as Murtaza mentioned, has implemented the DU framework in many of their projects. And it's robust, quick to implement, and efficient. We have churned out massive volumes through the UiPath DU product. In the last session, Sean spoke about the DU framework. He did a demo as well. We'll just do a quick recap on the DU solution from UiPath, and then we get into the understanding the activities presented by the DU framework. So end-to-end document processing. So a document is received. It can be, as Murtaza mentioned, various industries and various automation requirements would have different type of documents that would be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Structured examples are forms, IDs, passports, where the information is pretty much at specified locations. So it's easy to pick up the information because you can define the positions of the information in a document. Semi-structured examples are invoices, receipts, where information though are structured, but for example, the invoice date could be at different locations. The invoice number could be at different locations on an invoice. So there could be multiple layouts of the same document as well. There could be some free text on the document. So that's why it's called a semi-structured document, for which we use different type of extraction methods. And unstructured documents is pretty much rest of other documents such as letters, free text, documents having free text, etc. The UiPath framework offers extraction in multiple languages: English, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, Spanish. Also, there are models. If you're using machine learning models, there are 4 invoices. We have models available out of box for Japan, for China, So yes, so that's easy to develop in various languages. Also, the framework accepts handwritten information. So you could have an invoice which is handwritten, and pretty much it would pick up the information out of it. Even low quality scans, and we've used them in our projects, and it pretty much works. Understanding the information of these documents, that's what we're going to build. That is that is what the bot or the process is going to do. So there are various layers in this development process, which has to be followed to understand the information out of this document, which is digitize, classify, extract, validate, if you want, retrain and analyze the information, or export the information out, which can be then acted upon or used in the further automation, could be an RP or any other process you intend to use. So again, the document understanding framework is you pick up the document, you digitize it, classify. Now, when you digitize, you need to do it, but classify depends. For most of our projects, we do classification, but if there's a pre-classification method, for one of our projects, we did not have to use classification because the business had the documents available through an email inbox, and that was pretty much a monitored mailbox where it would receive only that type of document. So classification was not necessary. So it was a curated mailbox, and hence we did not need to use the classification activity at all. So thus we would just digitize the document where the assumption is that it is always the same document, and it just goes off to the extraction. The beauty is that even in the extraction, if the document is unable to be extracted, or the confidence score is less, and it is presented to a human, the document validation station from UiPath, it's a ready-made form available on Action Center, pre-built by UiPath, and that has an option to reject a document or classify it differently. So you still have that as a backup. And then, so when you take up a DU project, you always, so going back to the previous slide, where one, you receive, second, you understand, third, you act. When you get a DU project, it's best to start from the end. So why that is to understand where and what information is required of the documents in the automation process, or how it is to be used, if it is to be entered into a software, what information you require. So it's best to understand that before you come back to understanding how you want to digitize the document. This is important for creating your taxonomy. So taxonomy is the first bit of the document understanding framework, wherein you build the fields required out of the document. So I'll show you where that is in the activity. So pretty much this DU template is readily available in the template section. It's very quick and easy to use this for POC and a starting point for your DU project. Just pick up this template. It is pre-built and has all the options available. And then you can customize it according to your requirement. So I'll go back to the main XAML file. Yeah. So here you can see that the first process is initialization. Sean had shown us this last time, that this reads the config file, and it also reads the taxonomy document. So if you look here, there is an activity called load taxonomy of project. So there are barely any properties to this. It just knows where to pick up the information from. So when you build your project. If you pick up the template, the package is already in, which is the document understanding ML activities package. And that gives you this added icon here, which is the taxonomy manager. The taxonomy manager works off this file, the taxonomy JSON file, which is within the project folder called document processing. So this is just a JSON file defining the type of document and the fields required within that document, which has to be extracted. So I will go to the taxonomy manager now. And this is a GUI interface wherein you are able to define your fields. So here it is important that you restrict only to mandatory fields, because this information, if it goes to the human for validation, it will show them like this. This is a data validation station on the UiPath Action Center. So it'll show them. So this is good. It just has 3 fields. So if it goes to the human, they have only 3 fields to validate, and they know that this is they have to validate all these 3 fields. We don't want any other redundant information. So if you pick up an out-of-box model, that will have a generalized schema, pre-loaded generalized schema. You may need everything. Say from an invoice, you may need the ABN number, the account number, etc. Or some cases you may not need those information, so you can take them off. So that thing does not show in this. It is not in the taxonomy. It does not show over here also. That helps the user and saves them the time. So just show what mandatory information is required from them. So it saves time for the user to validate the required information only. Going back. To the project. So here in the pre-built taxonomy, we have the forms. So this is a structured unstructured document. This is a letter. And that's why we need only 3 fields out of this. This is a semi-structured document. So it is best to categorize them as structured, semi-structured, or other. So that's how it shows in the drop-down here. So when you go to the document type, I'll assign this to myself. And you'll see that all these show organized in an organized fashion. So it's easy to understand. So this is important that you properly word your categories, etc., because that's how it's going to be presented to the user or customer. Yeah. So under financial documents, you can see that there are receipts, and each of these fields has their own types. So if you put in the right types, it's good. You can also specify the format of the dates, etc., and it becomes very, very important there. You can also specify Boolean values if there are checkboxes, etc., on the taxonomy. So once you create a taxonomy, the JSON file gets updated here, as I showed in the project folder. And this taxonomy then, this argument is required in all the other activities as you go on. The second stage is digitize. I'll go to the next slide. Before I go to the next slide, let me talk a bit about, sorry, I'm just going into a different direction now, but the magic happens with data extraction. And it is pretty much important to cover that. So I'll quickly go through this. So we talked about documents. So if there are structured documents, then you could easily use the regex extractor or a form extractor. You would not require a machine learning model for that. And for certain documents, you may require a hybrid form, use machine learning as well, regex-based extractor or form extractors. What is model-based extractors? They are machine learning models, and they use deep learning to understand the nature of a document. So it's not a big database storing all the information. It is techniques, mathematical techniques, wherein it knows or understands the positions of the information. It understands, okay, what is the type of the value. So it understands the value. So if it's a date, it would know that's this has to be a date field, say invoice date or payment date or order date. So it understands these things. So it's easier to use this for high variance layouts. It's easier to manage that, and it's cost effective. When you use rule-based extraction, has high accuracy, because it's, you're sure that for a structured document, you know the positions where the information is placed, and you're able to use them and accurately. But if the layout of the document changes, then you again have to invest time to rebuild your regex and for that particular layout of the document. For ML, if you give them enough, if you use a retrainable model of UiPath and train them on a few high variance layouts, you could have a very robust model. We have attained accuracy up to 99% with our models. As I mentioned, the misconception about model ML extractors is there's a massive database. It is not. Coming now back to the framework activities, I'll go to the digitized document. So next stage is after the taxonomy is read, the bot now will start digitizing the document. So here you can present any kind of document type. So file formats, that is, it could be a PDF, it could be a JPEG, any kind of image files. So UiPath gives a digitized document scope, which you will find in the app integration document understanding activities. And the engines you will find here. So if you use this scope without the engine, then you could digitize native PDF documents, since it just use a PDF extraction for that. And if you use, so it comes default with the UiPath document OCR, that would require the API key. So as you can see the properties, you require the API key, for which you can get, which Sean showed last time. You can pick it up from your licensing if you are on cloud, and your endpoint. So for UiPath document OCR, there are fixed endpoints which will be there in the config file, which is pretty much in this document here. So you can see the UiPath OCR endpoint is this, which this activity will use. Now I'll go back to the scope here. So here pretty much you can use any other engine if you want. And with our experience, we have tried with, we just don't rely on one OCR. We try a couple of OCRs to find the confidence level of that OCR. As well, there are certain types of documents which UiPath may interpret differently to other OCRs. We have also used Omni OCRs for invoices, which has worked well. Or we use a hybrid. We use a couple of OCRs together. We identify various documents via, say, vendor name, and pass the document to a different OCR for a certain vendor, which we know that the OCR will do a better job. So spend some time sampling the OCRs, sampling different or trying out with different OCRs. The activity pretty much has the apply OCR on PDF. Yeah, to the slide. So this activity pretty much takes the file, spits out the text, what is extracted from the image, and it also gives an object model. So this object model is the XY location of each of this text which it has extracted, and this is good information for a machine learning model. Going to the next slide, I'd like to stress on apply OCR on PDF. Going back to Studio, you can see the property here, apply OCR on PDF. So there are three values to it. One is true. If you set it to true, OCR is forced on all PDF documents, even if it is a native document. If it is set to false, then you probably don't need an engine. It'll just extract document out of a native PDF. And if you use auto, then the activity will automatically decide if it's a native PDF, it'll just extract the document, extract the information out of it. Or if it is not a native PDF, then we'll convert it into image and do the OCR on it. But with experience, we always use, we set it to true, because we've seen that even native PDFs, though the information is visible to the player, to us, but when you extract it, it just gives you gibberish data. So it's safe to use true if you set it to true. And it's pretty important learning which we had. Degree of parallelism, this is the amount of cores, the CPU cores used by this activity. It's always to leave it at -1, which is it just uses automatically number of cores available on the machine. All these I pretty much don't touch, leave it as true, and this is where you supply the document path. You could use, so this template has attended as well using Action Center. So using Action Center is the using the validation station, which is over here. And also in that you are able to use, you can set it to use a queue. So you could supply the information. You could have a bot which extracts the PDF or the image of the document from the email or a folder and put it in a storage bucket, and then create a queue out of it. And then your bot can pick up the transaction. So you can have it transaction based, or you can just use it out of a folder, the information of all the files out of a folder. Important thing here is all these activities, you can see they're all separate XAML files, and you can see that the digitize activity has a retry scope here. Don't use any retry scopes in the main XAML file, because this is a persistent activity wherein the bot goes to a suspended state if it has to send for validation to human in the loop. So because of the persistent nature, if you use any delay activity or retry scopes in the main XAML, the bot will get suspended at that point, which is actually not a suspension because nothing will be presented there. So be mindful of that. That's why you will see only those scopes or activities, retry scope being used only in the separate XAML files where it goes to. The next stage is the classifier. So as I mentioned earlier, you may need to or you may not need to classify. So classify scope is available in the activities here. So as you can see, after it digitizes, it goes to the classify section, which is a separate XAML. Again, it has a retry scope. The reason you put in a retry scope is it's best to have a retry scope, else your bot will start failing due to poor internet connection. So it's best to have a retry scope on this. This, as you can see, is a parallel scope. You can put in multiple engines here or classification activities here in this scope, and that helps in using a specific classification activity for different types of documents. The classify scope has, again, takes in the file path, the doc text which has been generated by your OCR, and the document object model, and the taxonomy. Yeah, and then it spits out the classification results array. So as in this case, we can see that the template has a merged document. It's got multiple documents in one PDF file. So it's got a certificate of filing, an invoice, and a W-9 form, the receipt. So this is in one PDF only, and it has correctly classified them as a certificate of filing, invoice, W-9, and receipt, and it's given a score of 100%. This is though incompleted, but when I run this bot, it did show me 100%. So it's quite good enough. This intelligent classifier, keyword classifier, is good enough to use for small consumption, because again, it just uses one JSON file. And if you're using multiple DU bots, if you're having quite high traffic and volumes to handle, it's understand that this is again a file, and this file may then have to be put into a shared directory for all of these bots to access, because that's having the information and you're retraining that file on that information. So it could get corrupted. So it's best then to use ML classifiers, machine learning classifiers, which you can add from here. You can see this is a machine learning classifier, and you can just put it here. So you will create the model. So there is a document classification model out of available from UiPath, which is very quick to build, and you can stick in the endpoint here and your API key. So intelligent classifier, how does it work? So here you configure the classifier. So supposing you have a machine learning classifier, let me add the machine classifier again. So when I click on configure classifiers here, I will see that I can assign different types of documents to different classifiers. So in the original case, it was all the documents were being classified by the intelligent keyword classifier. I can then say that receipts and invoice should be classified by the machine learning classifier. Just put this checkbox here. So that information will be passed on to this machine learning classifier instead. Yep. And I'll just delete this. Any questions so far? Move on to the next. Yeah. So there is a keyword classifier as well, wherein you'll manually put in the information. So this will have keywords. So if it's an invoice, you'll put in keywords such as invoice, amount, tax, GST, etc., and it'll pick up. So this is not intelligent. It does not cost AI units, I believe, and hence also can be used. Intelligent keyword classifier has the benefits that it has splitting capabilities. So it can give you information about the page ranges of the document which is being classified. And as I mentioned, you are able to assign different document types to various classifiers. Skip this because this is if you want to present it using an attended. Go back to the activity. So after this document is classified, say it goes to the it's classified, and if you want this to forcefully go to the validation station, or if you get a score from this variable, the extraction results array, you're able to get the different types of documents and what is the confidence level. So if you feel that you set a threshold, again, run a few samples, understand how it works, and set a threshold. So you don't want to send everything to the humans, to the business. We want automation, yeah. So we want to try our best to give 70% automation at least. So we pass on only 30% at most. That's a practice which we have kept to the business. So we try to find the right threshold to send for validation. So say we normally keep a threshold of 80%. If the classifier is not confident that this document is an invoice or etc., then we send it to the validation, else we don't. So all that you could do it in the classification rules check. This is where you can add your code, specifying your threshold, etc. Here it is 100% classification, that everything goes there. So you could then manipulate this code accordingly. Going back to the main. So this is the validate and train classify. This activity sends the document. So this activity creates this form over here. Yeah. What it takes in is the action title, the name specified here. Please have a good naming format, as well quick to reference and identify and traceability, because this title can be searched here by the business. So it's good to have a traceability of where this came from, say the email it came from, because since the document is not extracted or classified, you don't know what the invoice number is now, or who the vendor is. So it's best to have some kind of reference tag to it. If you're using queues, then give the transaction reference here or something where you are able to trace back this document, else you don't know where this came from. So try to put that into good practice. You can set a priority of this. That could depend on various factors. Catalog, this is for grouping things. So if you have different documents and going to various parts of the business, it's good to create action catalogs on which is provided in the action center. Again, with that, you can organize this with the folder paths. Storage bucket is required to put this file into the storage bucket, and that's how you can see it here. So you'll need to create a storage bucket and put that information in the config file. So I'll put in the storage name here. Again, you're giving the target file, the text, the OCR text, the DOM object, the taxonomy, and the results array. So whatever information we had about the classification, whether it's a W9 or an invoice or receipts, and that is shown here. As you can say, invoice W9. So this information is passed on, and this gives an output classification action. From this classification action, you are able to, so this is passed on to the wait activity here. The wait activity suspends the bot. So what happens is, if you are using a queue, to manage this, then the bot will put this into suspension, will create the activity, create the action center form, that is the data classification station, and go into suspension and start doing some other task. So all the information here will be stored by the UiPath infrastructure, and once the human can get onto that action in a day, 2 days, in a week, 2 months, you don't know. So whenever they finish the activity, whenever they submit the activity, that bot will resume. So it's good to that you can see this. It's good to set a transaction progress. So this sets the progress with a key. You could set this as a reference to the queue reference. So this will help you find that job for traceability purpose. So it's good to use that. Going back to the main. So once this is resumed, the classification results array is then passed on to the extract. So it can use that. You can use the train activity to train the extract, train the classification. I'll show you the train extractors because we are running short of time. I'll go to the extraction activity. Going to all right. Sorry. Coming to the extract scope. Well, this is where all the magic happens, and you can see there are different types of extractors here. Regex extractor is used for the certificate of filing because it's an unstructured. It's a structured document. You know where that information is, and you are able to pull out the information specifically from that those fields. So you can configure the expressions here. You can see the regex statements here. This is a form extractor. You can manage the templates here. You can specify whether there's a signature or not with a checkbox activity saying yes or no. You'll see that in the, so I'll go to the W9 form. And it tells us here that there is a signature. So it says yes. So this is a Boolean value. As you can see, there's a signature here. So it's, and then we have the receipts. These are two machine learning models. So models have been created, skills have been built, and either you can make the skill endpoint as public and stick it in here, or if you're connected to the orchestrator, you'll see the skills here. And you pass on the API key. Configuring the extractor is the same. You are able to specify which extractor so which document goes to which extractor you're able to specify here, and also the mapping of the fields in the model. So for example, if you have the ML skills here, so mapping of the taxonomy. So this is taxonomy, and you're mapping this to the fields in the ML skill. Yeah. So this is pretty important to ensure that everything is mapped correctly for a good extraction. The next stage is after extraction. Again, you do an extraction rules check. You again have your OCR confidence as well the extraction confidence. Take a decision on what your confidence is, what thresholds you want it not to go to the validation station. If you're good enough, you can just send it for export, or you send it to the validation and train. This is pretty much the same activity, but this is a validation activity. So there are two different activities, but has a similar structure. One more thing I forgot to tell you about wait is there is this checkbox here about remove data from storage. So if you take this, what happens is it removes the files from the storage, but then you will not be able to see this PDF in the completed box because that is not saved in storage. So for purpose of audit, it's best to turn this off. By default, this will be on. So take it off. And probably you can put in some cleaning method to remove all those excess files. After the extraction is done, you could also, so once the form is submitted, it goes to the train extractors. Where the ML model, you could set the data set where, so if you have trained the model, you have labeled the model, then you could use the same data set and this will send that information to the data set. So you are able to automate the entire process of retraining, wherein this trained information, so whatever the user has submitted, maybe corrected, this new information goes to the data set that can be imported automatically into the data labeling studio. And then when you run, you can also schedule a pipeline to run automatically, and that will keep the model up to date. You can also set the model skills to be updated automatically, and then you'll have a auto-trained model available always. So this learns with user interaction. So your score improves, but there's a saturation point. So don't retrain too much also. So that's why this is an asset controllable value. You may say don't train anymore. You can stop there because you may end up corrupting the model. The final stage is the export. Going back to the main sequence, after the validation comes. So here, since we have 4 documents, what you'll see here is, go back to this. Process each document. Yeah. So this is in a loop because we got 4 documents. So this is a parallel loop. So it's putting 4 documents together almost at the same time in the validation. But understand pretty much if you're using one document at a time, you'll have to run the bot again. So you'll have to set a minute trigger. If you're using queue-based transactions, you'll have to set a minute trigger to run every document again, because that thing gets suspended. So that job gets suspended to be resumed later. Yeah, so that's important to note. Going to the export. finally, so here, whatever extraction is then, so you have a ready activity available, which is called the export extraction, that takes in the extraction results and gives it to a data set. And then you can export the tables from the data set into a Excel file or whatever, or however you want to use that data. So the Excel file will look like this. So this is for the certificate of filing. This is an receipt. So it gives you 4 sheets. First is the header sheet. Second is the formatted same information. And then this is the information in the items, and again formatted information. So this is how you are able to then use this data to enter into an ERP solution. That's pretty much about all these activities. Any questions?
Mortusa, yeah, so there's one that, but it was sent to me alone.
Yep.
So there was a question with regard to the classify stage. They wanted to ask that they understand that the classify stage is optional. When will it be a mandatory?
Yeah, so we have a customer wherein the mailbox pretty much everything comes in. Yeah, all the junk comes in, even personal stuff of people come in. So definitely you need a classification station there. And what documents we may expect and what documents we don't want. So that's becomes very important to specify in the taxonomy. Or what is your end process, which documents are required for your end process. Most of the time automations are done on specific documents only. So you would do an invoice automation or a receipts automation, or you would do if you're in HR, you would just do certain documents like passports or ID cards, etc. So you would have only specified documents. So it's then becomes more streamlined, and it's best not to take in too many different documents into classification, because now when I showed you, it looks, yeah, it's very easy, it's nice, but in real life situation, it is not, because you can get all sorts of documents, and you may start sending too much to the business to validate, which is not a good user experience. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and to add on to that one, in terms of the classification stage, what I understand is, let's say if you just have one specific document, for example, just passports, you don't really need to put in a classification stage for that, because the robot anyway will expect that you have passports also, and then you can actually just create the inflow rules
Yes.
that you can actually separate the different files as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're right. As I mentioned, even if say a wrong file came in, the extraction will not happen correctly, and so your scores will be less. You will send it to the validation station, and there in the data validation station also you have an option to reject the document. So I'll show you that. Sorry. I'll quickly show you that. So here you can see going back. If I assign it to myself, there's one pending document here. So this red button allows you to give a reason. So this is good for use in the business. So they can specify, say this is a statement, and you can set rules in your bot. As Murtaza mentioned previously, you are able to customize things, which is the reality. If they say statement, you can automatically send that back to their email inbox, which says statement. So it makes life easier for them, because this is out of scope of your project. So the business can be told, please enter statement here, or please enter other here, and it'll automatically put it back into the right box. And this is also the activity specifically can capture both the classify validate. So the wait activities are able to capture that information. Let me go back into training quickly. Yeah, so at this, if there's an exception, this will raise an exception. So you could put this, so you can, so in case of user rejection or document rejection, user exception is thrown here. So you could put this under try catch and get that exception out and possibly have a workflow built there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that, Matusa. So yeah, another question would be previous recording or session recording will be shared. So yeah, definitely we are recording the session. So yeah, so for the previous session as well, it's available via UiPath community in Melbourne chapter, so you'll be able to access that. And then yeah, for the file, the PDF version is actually going to be made available as well. Yeah. Thank you, Mortosa, for presenting. I believe the session was really helpful. Especially we were able to deep dive into the stages, and you're actually able to share with us more of the best practices as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry. So before wrapping up, just one more question from my side, Shankarlal this side.
Hi, Shankar.
Is DU capable enough to handle different invoices present in a single file? Will it be possible?
Yes. Yeah. So we have a customer who has this because what they do is they scan. So they have an office, home office, where they scan multiple invoices into one PDF. Yeah, and then they email that PDF. So we have to split that. So yeah, pretty much splitting is possible in the current DU framework. As I mentioned, the machine learning, the classifiers also give you that information in the array with the page details, so you can you get that information. So in the document you will know page 1, page 2 are and it's a pretty slick interface, as I can see. Show you here. So the user is able to, so in this case we have different types of documents in one PDF, but you may have multiple invoices, multiple receipts. You may have Coles receipts, you may have Woolies receipts if you're in Australia. So you're able to move these documents accordingly, so the user can do that, and that information is passed on by the bot. So you can put in your flow. The array will have all that information. You have also the user information, which we always use to log which user did these changes or who validated it. So this is a useful information which we log. And the array has all the split information. So then you can, if you're using queue, it's best to create a new transaction, or you could use again a parallel activity and extract them all. Yeah, so pretty much yes. And even it can have handwritten documents also, and it works.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks.
That answers your question. Yeah.
Awesome. So do join us in another upcoming event. We actually have, we're going to tackle human in the loop, and then also that's going to be on the 2nd of November, and also we have on the 9th of November AI powered document understanding. So yeah, please, I've shared the links to these events for the registration for these events in the chat. So kindly register if you guys would be interested. And yeah, I think we should wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Martusa. We also have a WhatsApp group chat in Melbourne. So this is a Melbourne UiPath community WhatsApp group. So do join, or do register as well through this bit.ly link. Yeah, and yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your help. I appreciate your time, everyone, and Martusa as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.